Report.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Ding, 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 ding. Bruce Wolf and Sean Thompson in for Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. And in just a moment, we're going to talk to Gover Norquist.
I can't wait.
Of the Americans for Tax Reform. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Ted Nugent, local story. Ted Nugent was invited to play at the McHenry County Fair this year, but apparently there's some backlash against Ted. You know, for the Democrats of McHenry County, the Democratic Women's Club, one Julie Bilmack says, the issue for me is his history of acknowledging his pedophilia and his affinity for, heavy weaponry. To that I say, I'm offended by the Dems who are offended but don't mention Nugent's anti-Semitism.
Stop wasting the time with the sexually frustrated menopausal. Gover Norquist is on the line.
That said, Dan Proft and I once interviewed Ted Nugent, and he said that Jesse Jackson was out of his, quote, cotton-picking mind, end quote. Dan and I rolled our eyes up in our heads at that time. But, the guy inspired Chet Chit Chat Fever, the song with Cat Scratch Fever. So I'm ambivalent about Ted Nugent.
Let's visit mediocrity later.
Now, Gover Norquist joins us now. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it. Top of the morning.
Absolutely.
Can't believe he didn't hang up. I can't believe you didn't hang up.
Gover Norquist is not going to hang up when he has a chance to deliver the message. And I have to ask you this, Gover. I mean, Is the American public stupid? Because there was the story a few months ago, or, as we turned over into the new year and people were starting to pay attention to the fact that they had to pay their income taxes. Oh, look, I'm not getting a refund. That's because less was withheld. People don't understand that. People can't do the math, right?
As a teaching moment, it's even better than that.
Okay.
The establishment press spent a year, actually 675 days, 2 years, talking about anything other than cutting taxes and the economic growth that flowed from that. That's the 675 days was the Mueller report, which did its job, which was to distract everybody from the successes of the Republican Congress and the Trump presidency, the tax cuts, the higher growth, the higher wages, the 6 million new jobs, all of these things. They didn't want to talk about. They wanted to talk about anything else would do, okay? And so when there was this report that for a week or two of 12 months, that some of the average refund was lower than last year, okay? Completely meaningless statistic in anybody's life, because all it means is if you got a lower refund, it meant you didn't pay the government too much money, right? You didn't give them as large a interest-free loan as you did the previous year. That's a good thing. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. But they said it in a way that sounded like you weren't really getting a tax cut, which is not at all what it is. And even the people on national radio, national TV, are smart enough to know they're lying, that equating tax refunds with tax cuts. Well, it turns out that when you went for several months, as you get closer to April 11th, the average refund is almost exactly the same this year as last. It's just that 90% of taxpayers have significantly lower taxes.
No,
what were they doing? Talking about something other than the taxes.
Right. Here's the thing. The people are such infants in this country. The infantilization of America, and I know this is in Sean's bailiwick. They want the government to hold their money for them because they're afraid they'll spend it. They want the government to take away their guns because they're afraid they'll use it on themselves. I mean, that's the whole thing. And that's
the mindset of a slave,
yes.
And Gover deals with it all the time. And my question, Gover, I've followed your career for a long time. What kind of shower do you have? What kind of flow on the shower do you have to get clean enough after dealing with the kind of scoundrels you must deal with on a daily basis? And the overall idea that we are arguing about our idea of an acceptable atrocity against an American ideal of our income tax, where we've accepted this progressive tax and we're just arguing the pressure rather than the principle. And I find that it is almost a sense of hopelessness. And I wonder if you ever get that way, knowing that we are using this as a weapon, as a political baton against people who are not in power. I find it just disheartening. And I'm wondering, are we ever going to get to the only thing that's constitutional, a flat tax. Are we ever going to get to it?
I think so. Prior to emigrating to the United States, I used to live in Massachusetts. And there, very deep blue Massachusetts, we have a flat tax, a single rate tax. 5 times the voters in Massachusetts have cast a ballot. Would you like to go to a graduated or progressive income tax? 5 times George McGovern and Ted Kennedy, Massachusetts, voted no. Illinois has a single rate tax. I know the left keeps trying to get rid of it, but Colorado has a single rate tax. 9 states have a single rate tax of zero, which is one of the better numbers to have as flat rate tax of. Flat rate taxes help keep taxes low because when politicians want to steal people's money, they have to look at everybody in the eye and say, everybody, I want everybody's attention. I've got this really good idea and I want your money. And people say, you know what? It better be really good because we're all listening. What Obama did and what Bill Clinton did was they said, I'm only going to loot 1% or 2%. So some of you may want to step out of the room. It's going to get noisy and unpleasant, but it's not you, it's them. So it's okay. And if you divide people up, once you've worked over the 1% to 2%, you come back for the gas tax and the energy tax and all those sorts of things where everybody else gets whacked. Politicians love a graduated income tax. You can divide people into different groups, mug them one at a time.
It's great, and it's a gateway to graduating the tax for the middle class as well, because first you get the rich people who will move out because they are able to, or they'll find a way around it. And, of course, you will lose all the stimulation of a business in a state. It doesn't work. It's going on in Illinois right now. Pritzker just came out with it the other day saying that 97% of the taxpayers will see a benefit on this. Of course, he's got nothing in there about paying for the pensions. You know, that's the elephant in the room, as well as Pritzker. But the
year one, you may have 98% not affected. Years 2, 3, and 4, every other state that has graduated income tax, like California, the reason you have high tax rates on the rich is so you can go to the middle class and say, see, that guy's paying 10. You don't mind 5. And they go, 5, I used to pay 2. You know, the difference between the United States and Sweden, Norway, Finland is not how they tax rich people. They tax rich people a little higher than we do. But their tax on the absolute middle income is about 10 to 20% more than in the United States. And they use tax the rich as the battle cry. You know how somebody jostles you or at the time when they put their hand in your pocket to steal your wallet, they're trying to distract you. Okay? They say,
Bruce calls it
look,
prom.
Rich people, we're going to tax them. And their hand goes right into your bank account, right into your wallet. And then they turn around, and when you get mad at them, they say, you shouldn't complain. We only cut one of your fingers off. That guy would cut 3 fingers off. You should be happy.
Well, so in other words, what you're saying is that Governor Pritzker, even though he looks like, you know, a shambling guy, he's actually the Artful Dodger. And he's going to bamboozle everyone. You're telling me that you came from the People's Republic of Massachusetts, and even they won't go to a progressive income tax, but Illinois is going to lead the way to the end of the universe for us. It's going to ultimately result in a bailout, isn't it? For this, that's what we're waiting for here in Illinois, is for Bernie Sanders to become the president.
I got news for you in Illinois. The rest of the country will not bail you out. The rest of the country will not bail you out because a number of states, Utah, for instance, moved all of their pensions from defined benefit to defined contribution, meaning like a 401k or an IRA. So 25 years from now, they'll have no unfunded liabilities at all, okay? And they're much better off. Enough states are fixing their pensions enough. And, you know, it's not easy. You got to make some changes. People were lied to about what they were going to get. You got to come up with honest answers and numbers and how you're going to make it work. Nobody is going to raise taxes on their state to bail out Illinois when Rhode Island, for crying out loud, Rhode Island did a great deal to fix their pension. New Jersey took $30 billion out of their pension deficit and debt. And we look over, and Illinois is not even breaking a sweat thinking about someday doing something about their pension system. And so when they go, can you guys give us like $1 gajillion because we forgot? And the answer is no.
So by my math,
just
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
By my
No. Just if a politician tells you there's a bailout coming, there isn't, and they know it.
They're not saying it. They're not saying it, but they're going to look to it. They're going to look to Bernie Sanders. But go ahead, Sean.
In my math, I've got you doing this for 35 years. Am I right?
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got you doing this for 35 years. Are you astonished at the appetite in those 35 years, or the willingness for Americans? Either they don't rationalize that debt is tax and that policies are tax, or are you just astonished by their willingness to accept it? I remember being a kid, and there was all the outrage among citizens when there would be debt accumulation. And in this current America, I'm upset with the complacency of citizens. Even the Republicans, as long as there's a Republican president, they don't say anything anymore. And what is your opinion on that? And how does that translate into tax? Do they just have to keep hiding it? Or how can they – is that the plan? Just forget Illinois bailout. Who's going to bail out America?
Look, we made some real progress with Trump's presidency, the Republican House and Senate, on tax cuts. We were planning on doing entitlement reform like we did welfare reform, which Bill Clinton signed after he vetoed it twice, for Medicaid and the various welfare programs where you get money for being poor, not because you paid into it like Social Security or Medicare. We can solve a great deal of the unfunded liabilities problems. State by state, people have to move their pensions from defined benefit to defined contribution to a 401k IRA where you actually save ahead. You know, the U.S. Army and Navy and Air Force is moving to a defined contribution plan. They just started this now. So it used to be only 16% of people who wore a uniform in this country ever saw a pension, because if you weren't there for like 20 years, you didn't get much or anything. And if everybody in the Marines is there for less than 8, except a handful of officers. So people would cycle through, and while they were contributing to the country, nothing was being saved for them in terms of a pension like 401k. Now they can do this. They can have a 401k. So we are getting people in the government sector 401ks, individual retirement accounts, so that they can move from job to job and still keep their retirement with them. And the great thing about a 401k or an IRA is you hold on to your money. You decide where to invest it. You hold on to it. The government doesn't say, when you get to be 55, 60, we're going to have money for you, and then you trust them. And then when you get there, the guys in Detroit go, and all my money? You say, oh, we forgot.
Sorry, Grover, you're going to get us dragging. We're going to be kicking and screaming. There's no way we're going to have you take care of us. Grover, thanks so much for joining us. Always enlightening. Very nice talking to you. Gover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform.
Thank you.
Bruce Wolf and Sean Thompson, in for Dan and Amy on AM 560 The Answer.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.